Buying into a retirement village, is it like buying a traditional apartment, a traditional house? What you need to know, what you need to watch for, pros, cons, benefits. Let's have a discussion today. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes, episode 379, Retirement Villages. What is it? Is it like buying a traditional home? We're going to speak about it today with myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak. Good morning. Admiral Luke, good to have you on.
Hello, everyone. Now, first of all, this is our exposure as realtors, real estate agents in the marketplace, what we see. So we're not coming from an angle of being in the retirement sector and giving advice on that. Just our observations of what we see people coming in and out of retirement villages.
Yeah, exactly right. And it's just because a lot of people, I think, go into the mindset, especially when people are downsizing, they sort of think, well, let's sell the big home, let's buy something. And you can't go too wrong because we're buying property. Property has been good to us for 20, 30, 50 years. At the end of the day, we're going to be there till a lot of older people say, you'll be taking me out in my box, or if we don't like it, we can move somewhere else and we'll have the money. So I think, first of all, it's not as simple as that. But it's not to deter you from buying in them because, Mark, do you want to go through, like, they offer a lot to pensioners. There's sort of two stages. You've got over 55s, which we're not really talking about because that's still very typical of a traditional property. Talking more retirement villages, which generally have an age entrance of 65 years and older. Some are 55, but we're not talking about over 55s living. They're pretty good. Good morning, Tony. This topic's for you from your recommendation yesterday.
And love everyone's interaction as well. So if you've got any comments, thoughts, opinions about this, experiences, definitely let us know live. But yeah, the over 55s is almost like a segue towards what we're talking about. So guys and girls, there are places out there that if you are handicapped or over 55, an occupant must be handicapped or an occupant must be over 55. There are apartments and there are townhouses and homes that are in this sector. So that'd be another one to cover another day, but they are there. Then you've got a normal real estate, your units and your houses, and now we've got retirement villages.
Yeah, and they're great for what they offer because they build a community of basically people in the same sort of generation, same living circumstances, and they create like their own little community. Because if you look at someone downsizing into an apartment, they're always worried about who are the neighbors, are they young, are they partying? They're not all at the same sort of time in life. So the concept of having that community with everyone there, a lot of the time they offer great services within that community, like private bus trips to the shops, to the beach. They have in the community, they have sort of on care services. There's different levels of retirement where it's like low care and high care, where they almost basically have not a doctor, but basically a doctor or those facilities on site for anything emergency. They've got buttons in the apartment that call the hospitals. Like, there's definitely the demand for it, the need for it. So you sort of got to put that aside because the stuff we're going to bring up, you're going to think to yourself, well, why would anyone live there? Because the dollars sometimes aren't very traditional on buying a property. So there's huge
demand. You can be a devil's advocate. You can be against, I'll be for.
It's a little bit. So, well, that's the for done. Community's done. But I think...
you know what else, guys? It's one of those things where it's a massive responsibility on their partner. So if you've got a life partner and been married for a long time, and one's particularly unwell and one's reasonably well, it can sort of share a bit of that responsibility. So both of them going to the home, getting out of their conventional house, can actually really be good, because then there's that care that's needed, that requirement. You can even go, some of these villages have support with meals. They can supply meals for you. A company, if you're a single, it's quite a lot. Sometimes it can be quite lonely in a home or in an apartment, and it's quite, you're into this community with people that are like-minded to you, and can be quite cool.
Yeah, and there's some that are highly together, some people think a nurse, like a retirement home, like a nursing home, where it's very different. You can have your independence, like you're living on your own in an apartment and not use any of the services and have that privacy. But then they've got, like, a lot of the time they've got event centers, bars, pools, all that stuff where you can come together. But so getting into the financial, one thing which a lot of people don't realize is there's a big cooling off period, which is really desirable. If you're coming from a house that you've lived in and you don't know if a retirement village is for you, like a lot of things in real estate, you can't try before you buy. You can't live in that home and then a month later say, I don't like it, I want out. Once you've bought it, you've bought it. But that's not the case with retirement villages or retirement homes. You can have, it's insane. I think it's almost 3 months or 6 months. There's a cooling off period. You can basically put down the deposit. I think you get up to 3 months of living in the property before it goes effectively unconditional, as most of us in real estate will understand that dialogue. So you put down a small deposit, you move in. If you like it, for 3 months, I believe you settle on it at the beginning, but you can pull out after 3 months or payments, which is huge. Like, Mark, where else can you move into a property, call it your own, and then cancel it after a few months?
And we've got someone from Nigeria. Look at that. Alu. And that's a big one that you can do that. And, probably government regulated. I think there's people they figure that, when you're in your 70s and 80s, it's harder to make a decision. You need longer to make a decision, perhaps. You've got, sometimes you may make the wrong decision and family realises that you've done that. So that cooling off actually helps you, I think, a little bit through that. Very smart. That's one big plus. Another big plus is stamp duty. So on $1 million, for example, there's about 40 grand of stamp duty to pay. You don't have stamp duty.
So that says stamp duty when. Then also ongoing costs, Tony's asked. It's very similar to a traditional apartment. You have a quarterly fee. They're not extravagant. I've seen them before. Like, if you're buying a $1.5 million apartment, you would expect $1,000, some $1,300, some $1,500. So it is very similar. You do have ongoing costs.
I think you'll find that the ones that I've been exposed to, you're paying hard. You're paying hard through the nose, because there's a lot more functions and services that have been brought online for you. So you're really getting, with Strata, you're getting bare boned. You're only paying for, essentially maintaining the building and a fund. But you are paying a component of labour when you're in a retirement village. So there's labour items that get done. So how many times you've been through a retirement village and you see a gardener? Probably all the time. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. Like, there's always a gardener rattling around, or two or three. It's a bit like a golf course. They're a bit more elaborate with their gardens. They're a bit more They have common rooms for you to use that have to get paid for on a quarterly basis. Where those common rooms consume labour, power, landscaping, all that sort of stuff. So particularly if you start moving over to full care, you can really pay an absolute fortune per year, as much as, I think the figure was about $5,000 a week on some places for full care. I'm talking you need to be showered, fed, and everything like that. So it's in some parts of Sydney, that's what they're charging for some of these guys. But they're luxury. They're premium and they're luxury.
That's sort of like the blend of retirement and nursing home with that care. But then some you can have that full independence. You have nothing and you just pay $1,500 a quarter. and that's it. But Tony's brought up, and does it get messy when one leaves the planets? That's where it can really get a little bit, okay, is this right for me? Because your exiting costs, you could call it. I know, and these varies all different to each sort of village and development, you could call it. But I know on some of them, let's say you bought it for $1.5 million and the owner passes within 2 years. On some of them, let's say you sell it for 1.5, 25% of that goes to the owner of the retirement village, and then the rest pays off sort of the mortgage. It's like an exit fee early cost of the apartment. Some of them, let's say you sell it for 1.6, half the capital growth goes back to the village and some goes to the family. So there are some big.
It's pretty important to realise that there is capital growth.
Yes, definitely.
So some people, so what we mean by capital growth is from what you've purchased it for to what you've sold it, you do get a share in that. But the operative word's share, because in your house or in your unit that's not a retirement village, you're sharing with nobody. Your gain is your gain, full stop, amen. But in a retirement village, how much do you share?
Yeah, and that's what varies village to village. A lot of the time, you could be walking away even or down from it after you share. I know some of them have costs to basically rebuild the apartment, comes out of that share, so it's ready brand new for the next person. So I think the mindset of someone buying it who we've experienced and dealt with, they're either not worried about leaving any money for kids. They may not have kids, so they don't mind. Like, all they want is to enjoy their last 5, 10, 20 years, have that community, and money doesn't matter. It's like when you go to the grave, you can't take the money with you. So I want to have good quality life up until then. And whatever.
What did you just say? Money doesn't matter?
Well, money doesn't matter when you're dead. You can't take it with you.
I can't believe a real estate agent said that.
Yeah,
but it's true, eh? Like, sometimes it's that point of life where it's just like, just want to live.
Just want to live, because some people are selling their house with basically no ongoing costs for 1.8, buying a retirement village in an apartment for 1.5, but knowing that even if you sold it, you've got the 25% exit fee, make goods, things like that. You're like, well, there's not really going to be much left over, especially if you've got loans. Anmal's asked about loan repayments from Super. I'm not sure. I know a lot of it, you've got to put a pretty hefty deposit down with it. And also, we spoke, Mark, about, do you actually own it? Do you want to go through that?
Yeah, so basically, before that, there is a bond that you have to pay. We hear this all the time as real estate agents. Again, guys, I'm going to just reinforce what I said at the beginning. We are not advocating or not advocating retirement villages. We are not experts on retirement villages. We're just looking from our observations of what we see from our clients doing, the good, the bad, the ugly, everything. So the one thing that I do see with our clients is they struggle to get a bond together, because often you haven't sold your property and you need to get a bond to go into these retirement villages. Now, the bonds can be $1 million or $750,000 or more to go into these retirement villages, and they will assess your age and dependability. So when you were talking about 25%, it depends how far you used their services, and they ratchet that percentage. So if you go in at a very young age, obviously ripe old age of 65, and if you stay there till 95, I think you'll find by the end it will ratchet down, that you'll get less share of that capital growth. But I think if you find that you're going to 65, don't like it, come out at 68, then it's that any capital gain, you won't have to share as much of it with the village.
Yeah, and keep in mind, guys, it varies village to village, and some people will choose a village not by location, not by the quality, simply the structure it's set up on. It's big. need to know. It varies a lot. There's no, even though there's some basic legislation about the cooling offs and what you can and can't do, it's really case by case, village to village. Even Northern Beaches, you've got Hardboard Diggers have their own, Beacon Hill have their own. They vary a lot, and it's what you need to look out for, especially if your parents are going in there. And as much as people don't like to think of the worst case, especially in these circumstances, you need to be thinking of the worst case, because there may not be money afterwards. Not saying it's a bad thing. Keep in mind the community, the services, the live their life, because you're not technically buying a title. You are, but you're not buying brick and mortar, is sort of the saying. A lot of the time it's yours, but you're buying it under a lease structure, a license structure. So depending how long you're there is how long of that lease you use and how much value you have. For people Northern Beaches, a simple way to think about it is very similar to the church land on Bower Street. Yeah, it's your home, but that home's on a lease and the church owns that. So who really owns it? And how long is left?
A lot of Darling Harbour, Walsh Bay, Casino, a lot of that stuff's on leasehold, as well as the church land. Yeah, so there's a fair bit. Before we fly out, make good clause. Question by Anmal. Absolutely. Generally, the village will handle that make good clause for you and charge you.
Yeah, all part of that. The share you get back after it's been restored.
Yeah, they're not going to allow you to do it. It has to be done consistent with their village. Great observations, gentlemen. Thanks. Perhaps a topic on government buyback and rezoning affecting your property, Badger is Creek. Oh, Danny's on fire.
Great. Well, yeah, we've had a little bit of that French's Forest, but thank you for the topic. We love doing our research and talking about what you guys want to hear, and it's always interesting. It just shows you there's so much in property. Like your typical agent wouldn't know a thing about retirement villages, and they're dealing with downsizers who have to deal with a lot of it all the time. So it's good to know.
Yeah. And you know what? It's also like if you're thinking about mum and dad and their future and stuff, like where do you go to get the information? It's quite hard. So yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting information. If you have anyone that you think this is relevant to, we'd love you to share it. That helps us. So yeah.
Perfect. Alrighty, guys. Thank you, everyone. Cheers. Bye.
Thank you, Mr. Burgio.
Thank you. Bye.